You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So in light of what Trump had declassified yesterday as it pertains to our elections, all eyes are on this Save America Act, or the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, the SAVE Act, which was passed in the House. And the House did their part, but the Senate needs 60 votes to overcome a Democratic filibuster, and they only have about 53. The Save America Act has legislation that requires for you to vote, you be a citizen. Passport, birth certificate, when you register to vote. Not as, we've seen on camera, we've seen, reports, we've seen people say, look, I'll give you money, register, just sign here. I mean, in any other country, there has to be, if you're going to vote, there has to be proof of citizenship. Voter ID. Proof of voter ID. Mail-in ballots being the way it's done in other countries where you request one if you are disabled out of the country. That voting ballot is going to be yours, which then blocks anybody saying they're you going to the ballot themselves. That one voter ID you get, rather than it defaultedly being just mailed all over the country, which, by the way, I thought we're trying to save the trees and be pro-environment, yet we're mailing 350 million mail-in ballots. Who knows, even more? We're printing all those up. Isn't that not very energy efficient? But so the Save America Act tries to address that. And it's pretty important. Trump has been very vocal about it. And now with the recent information, which I think it's not too shocking, that China and other countries have been interfering with elections. Our voting machines have vulnerabilities. There's voter fraud. There's non-citizens voting in our elections. These are things that it's not shocking because there's always been fraud in elections, but the degree is frightening, and it is able to sway an election from, rather than just somebody's neighbor voting for her dead husband, voting for their dead neighbor. A handful of those cases. Now that potential can be in the tens or hundreds of thousands, and then knowing that another country was able to hack and get into our system. That's frightening, especially since it's electronic. And so the Save America Act, I think, is very necessary for both Republicans and Democrats. The problem is with the Senate, they would have to then, override the filibuster to just do simple majority. And the big concern that Senate Republicans have is then if they do lose the Senate in the future, which happens, you got Democrats in control, Republicans in control. If the Democrats are in control, then they are going to try to pass D.C. becoming a state, Puerto Rico becoming a state, packing the Supreme Court, and then doing things that could interfere with also the integrity and the by trying to add extra numbers. See, I don't think any law should be to benefit a Republican or to benefit a Democrat. I think every law should be to benefit America. And so the reason why I support the Save America Act is voter ID and controlling the widespread fraud with mail-in ballots helps both Democrats and Republicans. It's bipartisan. But, when it comes to gerrymandering and things like that, I have more of a problem with, because you're voting and you're doing things to basically benefit, just one party. And that's not cool. So I really do believe that if you are, same thing with the Supreme Court, there should be no decision that is solely to benefit a Republican or Democrat. It's supposed to be, are you interpreting the law correctly? And is this how Americans benefit? Is that what the Constitution designed? That's what, And instead we have left-leaning judges and right-leaning judges. That's so the question everybody asks is if we have an upcoming midterm election, which can definitely affect control in the House and the Senate. And it could, if it's done if there is cheating, that could be very dangerous. If it's not cheating, then that's what America wants. So how do you get rid of the question of there being any cheating? Well, have it a system where it's really hard to cheat. So, do the mail-in ballots like we used to, where it was just a handful per, it was a few thousand per city. It really wasn't that much of an issue. So it couldn't sway an entire federal election or a federal makeup of that. But, there's a lot of arguments going the Senate should just pass it. They're in control for what very little time they have anyway, and to just pass it. On the other end, I have been a fan of, majority, making sure there's bipartisan advantages to each bill. And if we're going to have statehood, if we are going to make another entity a state like Washington, D.C., to make it its own state so it gets another 2 senators, that really should be decided bipartisanly. And so Republicans are worried that if they do away with the filibuster just for the SAVE Act, then because the Democrats do not want to vote for that. Why? That's pretty suspicious to me. Why would you not want to do that? Is it because these mail-in ballots are a big advantage to you? What is there cheating? I mean, don't you want to make sure that your elections can't be stolen from also? And that's my worry. As we're starting to move closer and closer to civil war, with such divide and polarity, I really do fear that you're going to have the other side, say, all right, then fine, we'll do the mail-in ballots too. Then we'll bring in boxes and we'll bring in suitcases of them and we'll, and I don't want to see that. I don't. I think it's frightening, and so maybe we just need to get it passed, and then we deal with the future. If the Senate decides to decide to pack the court and things like that, it's a mess. But I think to ensure that we have safe elections is bipartisan, easy. 1-877 Dr. Dolly. Hi, everyone. Dr. Dahlia here. Thousands of physicians, residents, nurses, and medical students are silently dealing with depression. And tragically, 400 take their lives each year. 400! I wrote The Depressed Doctor, hoping to reach out to anyone struggling. You're not alone. Don't stay silent. The Depressed Doctor can be found on Amazon, or the book can be found on drdahlia.com. And if you or anyone you know needs help, call or text 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Hotline.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877 Doc Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So since the COVID vaccine mandate, and I was not a fan of the mandate, but I was a fan that we had a vaccine because COVID was real. People were dying. The numbers, were they accurate numbers? We'll never know. Because there was a lot of chaos at the beginning. And at one point, the CDC had said in, I believe, 2021, that if it looks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, call it a duck and put it on the death certificate if you think it was COVID related. And I was like, we need to have a more accurate counting system. But the COVID vaccine did help millions of people. Did it also have side effects? Yeah, there were side effects. In fact, some of the side effects were so severe that other countries had to limit which types of vaccines they were going to give, whether to stop using the Johnson & Johnson or the Moderna in young men. And there was a definitely evolving recommendations because it came out so fast. It was in a very chaotic time. And, as with anything, there's always side effects. But what continues to happen that always needs some clarification and should be evaluated, right, is whenever somebody dies in public, we keep being asked, did they get a COVID vaccine? And so you keep seeing online, did the COVID vaccine kill that person? I don't mind people bringing that up. I know a lot of doctors are like, oh my God, will people just stop? I don't mind because in science, that's what we're supposed to do. We understood that there were short-term risks with the COVID vaccine, but there were more risks with COVID. But what about any long-term? People are always wondering, what are the long-term effects of what we got? And anybody who has gotten that vaccine has kind of been wondering, okay, did it kind of dissipate out of your system and biodegrade, and are we good, or can there be anything long-term from it? And we don't really have a lot of studies. But with Lindsey Graham dying of an aortic dissection, where his aorta is the main artery coming out of the heart that's supposed to pump blood with such force to other body, the rest of the body, when the force, when there's a shearing of the lining of the canal, now you have a false lumen and then the true lumen, and the false lumen starts getting bigger. That lumen goes nowhere. It's like an extra lane, on the highway that everybody decides to jump into, but then they have to go back because if there's no other, if that lane ends, the lane eventually ends, and the blood that needs to be in the main lumen of the aorta isn't enough. They end up not perfusing the organs they're supposed to perfuse. They end up passing out, going into cardiac arrest, and dying. And so people have asked, did the COVID vaccine play a role? We don't have a lot of evidence or data linking COVID vaccine to aortic dissection. There was a case of somebody in his 90s that was in the it was within I believe a short period of time. After, I believe, let me see, 1 second here. Let me pull it up. The problem with my computer is it's there. And then, so I think there was one case where he was in his 90s. He had concurrent myocarditis, inflammation of the heart. And so according to, this was the BMJ Heart Journal, they wanted to look at whether it was the vaccine or COVID that could have caused the aortic dissection. So we don't have a lot of studies saying that somebody got a COVID vaccine and then immediately went and dissected. We also don't have a lot of studies saying somebody got a COVID vaccine 6 years ago and then here we are getting an aortic dissection. There's not enough studies. So we can't say it's an absolute no, but it tends to lean more towards, we get tens of thousands of aortic dissections a year in the United States in men with coronary artery disease. Lindsey Graham's father had died of a massive heart attack. He had arteriosclerosis seen on exam. His aortic dissection was probably non-COVID vaccine related. That's my guess. Can I say that with 1,000% certainty? No. But being that I've seen aortic dissections, being that men in their 70s with arteriosclerosis and cardiovascular disease, dying from cardiac arrest or left anterior descending intimal tears that cause thrombosis and heart attacks and arrhythmias, and the probability of a 71-year-old man, I believe Lindsey Graham was 71, may he rest in peace, having a cardiac event like Alan Thicke did, like John Ritter did, is more probable than a 6-year-old COVID vaccine side effect. However, what was looked at early on is the myocarditis, the inflammation of the heart from some people who got inflammation of the heart from the COVID-19. Did that also cause aortitis, inflammation of the aorta and the lining, and did that weaken it? Is there a potential? Yes, I do believe there's a potential. Do I think that applies to Lindsey Graham's case? I don't. So the reason why I think this is important to talk about is we're having these burning questions and a lot of anger and resentment with the Biden administration from the mandate, where people who were not going to get the vaccine got it and are ticked off, and they want to know what long-term effects there are. And people are not satisfied with the answer, nope, you're good. They want to see evidence. And so they're doing their own research. So anytime somebody dies, they're like, well, was that the vaccine? Was that the vaccine? We are seeing a lot of young individuals die, a lot of influencers, things. I mean, every time I open up my computer, some 25-year-old influencer is dead or a 30-year-old has died. I mean, we are seeing a lot of younger individuals die. However, is it that we've always had suicide, accidents, arrhythmias, issues in younger individuals, and just now it's being advertised? If a 25-year-old in Sioux City, Iowa dies, does that make national news? But if they're an influencer, it gets on your Google page. And so, people, gosh, are we having more younger people die? We are having more younger people die as a whole because we have a higher population. But what are they dying of? We know cancer's on the rise. We know that fentanyl doses, we know suicides are up. But are they COVID vaccine related? So we have to understand fully what long-term COVID vaccine effects could be. And we don't really have a lot of knowledge of that. Inflammation of the heart or arrhythmias or things that had happened, the thrombocytopenia, some of the side effects that we had seen early on, those are not things that are supposed to be chronic. So I don't feel as fearful that for those of us that got vaccines, and I got 3 of them on purpose. I knew exactly what I was doing. I wanted to, because I didn't want to get COVID. I feared China more than I feared Pfizer. And my third booster did prevent me from getting COVID, which is really what I wanted. It's my choice. I didn't want COVID, and it did a good job of my not getting COVID that year. But I didn't like how I felt. Arm pain, chest pain, breast pain, underarm swelling. I did not like how I reacted to it. So I'm probably not going to get another one. But that's me. That's my personal choice. But to say that I am going to have long-lasting effects as a result of it, I'm not that convinced, because I got COVID, and COVID, I think, really messed me up. COVID messed up my very large tidal volumes and breathing. And I think it also messed with my memory. I still have a good memory, but I had a really good memory. So if somebody says to me, Dahlia, when I do turn 60 or 70 or 80 in the future, do you think you're this way because of the COVID vaccine? I'm probably going to be more likely to blame what COVID did to me, because COVID it just knocked me out. And I got it twice. So, but I don't want people feeling that they can't ask or inquire, because that's what I really didn't like about the mandate. Doctors were getting in trouble. They were getting their license suspended. They were getting fired just for saying, look, can we look at natural immunity? Can we look at the combo? Can we look at the side effects? Can we, because this is what we do in science. And I feel like I'm going to be doing something wrong if I don't do it the way I was yelled at that I had to do it. And we saw such a very dystopian type of system when the mandate came out. Did the vaccine save lives? Yes, but did we have to mandate it? No, because then we had people who lied. We had people get fake cards. It was a mess, and people lost faith in the government. And I had predicted that we're going to see more childhood illnesses because parents are going to say, to hell with all the vaccines. And here we are. So we shouldn't have done the mandate, but we should do some research to see if there are any long-term effects, as well as long-term effects from COVID. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Show 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So I thought USA did a great job in soccer. I mean, they made it to the final 16. Belgium knocked us out. But I thought we did a pretty good job. I thought we had a good show. But there's the debate that how are these other countries beating us? If the U.S. is the best, why are other countries beating us? And one concern people are having is that we are not finding the best talent because individuals that don't have the income to be able to spend on these soccer clubs and sports will never get seen. It's too expensive to be in school sports. And so now there's calls that America does things kind of differently so that, France, Argentina, Belgium, Spain, England, these European countries don't always win. Argentina isn't European, I apologize, but these other non-American countries don't. Why don't we compete at that same level? What's our issue? So I've had my kids were in soccer, baseball, swim, football, lacrosse. It got costly. But it wasn't so much the cost. It was the missing work, taking time off work. Thank God my husband could take off. Me running a busy medical practice, when there's, 4 games a week plus practice, plus I would never be able to get to work. And so luckily he did all that. And sad, I missed a lot of my kids' games. I wish I didn't. In retrospect, but I had patience. I didn't want them to wait. I had to take care of them, and I put the patients first. Would I have done it again? Probably. As much as I want to say, I would have put my family first. When you're a doctor and patients are coming in and they need your help, you just, and a lot of that was work for free. But, I made that decision, and I'm going to live with it. But when you look at an average working family, now cost to have your child in an average sport is about $1,000 a year, not to mention all the time off work. And so when you have a child that's exceptional or that doesn't know their skill, they may never get a chance to be who they want to be because they're home playing video games or they're at daycare or whatever. Now, also, I think a lot of parents are worried about the injuries. I think they're very, very nervous about the injuries and the medical costs. So that might also be a part of it. It's not only just club costs, but they're like, when my kid, I was at a JV game, and I was kind of like the JV doctor, and there was a kid that fractured his jaw in 2 places. I mean, those parents, then I saw another fractured leg, and then we saw cervical injuries. And so I think you do also have some parents going, you know what? Yeah, not only is it expensive, but we also got medical bills, but people worry that the next Massey or Mbappe from France, or we're not going to have we're not going to find them if we don't increase access and increase the ability for youth to be able to access that. So how are all these other countries doing it? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we're told by these other countries that these other countries are great with their socialized medicine and all their programs and all that other stuff. And they can pay for everything, and they can, actually they do rely a lot on community support and local clubs and even some of the professional clubs. And they try to get areas or arenas who will give lower rent. And in some countries, they may subsidize about $300 a year. Some countries' governments might subsidize for a child's sport. But in Japan, for example, it's, I believe, within the school. Your ability to play soccer is, offered in school. See, in America, we have PE 2 or 3 times a week. No, and I always said the way we need to do our schools are differently, where the core classes are in the morning, then the afternoon is all your practical learning, your life skills, your exposure to all the trades and all the careers out there, your exercise, your first aid, your learning how to farm and hunt and fish and all that. But you can be doing your soccer, your football, your swim, your varsity. You could be doing those in that afternoon. That's all a part of that already public school umbrella. And in Japan, sports are part of that. It's very important for your physical being, and I like that. I loved when I was at school, we got to do volleyball and football, and they had to stop flag football, for us girls because there was accidents and stuff. But I think kids should have access to that. If we're giving the kids access in my way of doing school, access to all the different fields and careers and trades, but let's also give them access to the different sports. What are you good at? There's a lot of people that might not be able to run, but they can do archery. So I think we do need to allow kids, and not just with a couple hour a week PE course, to see where they have aptitude and give them that confidence and teach them how to compete and teach them how to lose. But in America, though, soccer isn't as glorified as other sports. So whereas in Europe and Argentina and South America and Latin America and the Middle East, playing soccer is one of their biggest sports. So yes, they have a lot of community government support. In America, soccer comes after football. It comes after basketball. Maybe it's coming even after hockey. And then baseball. I mean, baseball was America's, we're now it's all about baseball right now. And so soccer gets kind of sidelined. So to say, look, we need money to help support these kids for soccer, then, well, what about, football? What about, so it is a problem, though. Being in a sport is too expensive. The equipment's expensive. The renting of the field is expensive. The coaching staff is expensive. The supplies, the travel. And we have a family member whose daughter is on the National Olympic ice skating team. God bless her. She's amazing. But it cost a pretty penny for years to, all the travel, because nobody's giving you free travel. If you have to go and do a competition, and that's what you need to do. You need to do a competition. You got to travel there. I'm looking at just regular flights. I mean, I'm going to Denver, and luckily I was able to get the flight under $500. But my son wanted to come with me, and by the time we got his ticket, it's $600 round trip. $600 to go to a place that's only an hour and a half away by flight. But that's expensive. That adds up. Now, luckily he had credit, and he had, we want kids in sports, but we're probably going to have to be a little smarter about where that money is coming from. And maybe we do look at our professional groups and our professional teams and see what they could do. See if we could have a community, shall we say, field that we can share, and we can we can be very we can manage it properly in terms of who has it when, and what we could do with schools and incorporate change PE to where they have more of it per day, but that's when they could do their practices, when you have coaches already being paid on the clock. But people are looking at the U.S. and how our soccer does not seem to have the same popularity. It's popular now. I mean, gosh, I got to tell you, I'm hooked. I wasn't really a big soccer fan. I liked soccer and I liked watching it. But I got to tell you, with what I saw, okay, I'm watching soccer. Also, man, I'm blown away with rugby. I was on a layover and I was in London. And I was watching this big screen, and we were watching the rugby games. Dang, that's pretty exciting stuff. So I love sports. I can watch any sport. I don't know if I'm ready for cricket yet, but I can watch any sport. But America, we have, 65, 70 million children? And to be able to subsidize them to do sports is going to be very difficult. But we need to have a better way of identifying who is our next Messi, or who is our next Pele, or whoever is our next, ideal, who's our next Tom Brady. And we got to give them an opportunity, and it can't just be the rich kids. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So there are reports that in Denmark, they are going to ban burkas in schools and universities under plans to tackle parallel societies. According to Daily Mail, the garment worn by some Muslim women that has been already banned in public places in Denmark is now going to expand to classrooms. In Denmark, the term, quote, parallel societies refers to residential areas where more than half of the inhabitants are from an immigrant background. Apparently, the ban was introduced in Denmark back in 2018. And if you used a burqa, you paid a $1,300 euro fine so a €1,300 fine. And critics are arguing that the face coverings are not widespread in classrooms, so you don't have to ban them there. But apparently the Danish government feels that's necessary. They say the government will present a number of legislative proposals that were not adopted before the election. This includes, among other things, the bill on strengthened efforts against parallel societies and negative social control. They say Denmark has one of the toughest migration laws in Europe, which were introduced after its left-leaning government, which came into power, promised to curb migration to protect Danishness. So left-leaning was more conservative with migration. It's interesting. And they wanted to protect Danishness and kind of keep that, I guess, culture. They say, in addition to introducing the Burka ban, new rules came in compelling all newcomers and their children to learn Danish or lose asylum seeker benefits. Now, see, that's interesting because when my father and his parents came to the country, they had to learn English. They wanted to because they wanted to be able to take the test and become citizens. I don't remember if it was mandated for them. I wasn't born at the time. He hadn't married my mom until after he became a citizen. But you had to learn English. So in Denmark, all newcomers and their children have to learn Danish. I guess there's been a lot of debate also on if the people that come in get to keep their jewelry, get to keep their assets. I don't know much about Denmark migration, but this caught my eye. In terms of, when people are saying, oh, America is horrible, America's horrible. There are other countries that are a lot more strict, especially as it pertains to immigration, especially as it pertains to what happens and now, I don't know much about Middle Eastern culture and Muslim culture and burqas and I understand that, if somebody wants to practice their religion, being in a country like ours where you have freedom of religion is a huge freedom. But one thing I did find interesting is when I was in England a few years back, there was a school trip to a castle that me and the kids visited. We wanted to see a castle, and there was a field trip. And you heard a woman yelling at the kids. There were a bunch of little kids, young kids, probably first or second grade. And I looked to see who's yelling, and I couldn't see. I couldn't see somebody opening their mouth. And there were a couple women in full burqas with only their eyes showing. I guess, and it was one of them, trying to get the kids in line and yeah. And they did speak English. But you saw the kids a little confused, but that, young, first graders are confused. They just always kind of, try to ever do like a fire drill with them. But I found that interesting, because as a doctor who does pediatrics, kids are really observant with your facial features. Pets will do that too, if you notice. If you're trying to play peekaboo with your pet, they might like the idea of you, jumping on them and pouncing and things like that, but they want to read your face. They want to read your face. And I found that fascinating that these young kids were not able to read the teacher's face, let alone know who was talking to them because the mouth was covered. And so it's now, mind you, people, born in Muslim religions that use the burqa. I mean, these kids do learn how to, socialize and facial interactions. And they do because the moms at home, don't have to. The covering is only out in public. But I've wondered how that works when your teacher has to wear that all day. And if you don't have a teacher where you could look at their facial expressions. The communication my teachers gave me, whether I knew the answer or didn't know the answer, was even more important than what they said. I mean, I had teachers where I wanted to answer the question, I knew the answer, and the teacher wanted somebody else to answer and get the other kids involved. So I remember one teacher just looked at me and just kind of gave me a little smile And I knew it was enough communication for me. And I just wonder how that works in terms of young kids. And so I is the burqa ban because in Denmark, they just don't want you practicing your religion or your culture? Or is it that they really feel there's a need for there to be identity, transparency, there being visual surveillance? So it's unfortunately, the Muslim community has gotten stereotyped by individuals using the burqas and the long dresses to hide weapons and bombs and things like that. And and there's ways we don't have to have somebody disrobe. There's ways to tell if there is screening. And unfortunately, these reputations happen because there's bad people and there's terrorists out there that then ruin it for everybody else. But, when you look at what's going on with Denmark and you look at, the immigration rules in Japan and in Canada at all, if you misrepresent, you're deported. These other countries are even more strict than America. Yet America is the one that's being so under the microscope as it pertains to what we do with immigration. And I'm kind of scratching my head at that because I think there's other countries out there that are a lot more strict. And there's other countries that value other things. The looks like the Danish really want to keep Denmark Danish. Like, how Austin wants to keep Austin. Nevada doesn't want it to be Californiaized. It wants to keep it Nevadan. I think there is a demand for people to, as far as I'm concerned, America's a melting pot. Okay. I mean, I wasn't born from the colonists. My relatives are German, Austrian, Israeli. We have Puerto Rican. We have Russian. We have English. We have everything in the family, and so I'm a mutt, of multiple different ethnicities, and I love it. But I do understand, when you watch the World Cup and you watch, I love watching the World Cup and I love watching the Olympics, but then you wonder, are all the Norwegians true Norwegians? Or do they have Viking roots? Do they do all the, and people now, even in college level, are importing people of other countries to build their team. And then that's the American team, or that's the French team, or that's the Argentinian team. So there, I understand why there's a desire to have some of that culture, Oktoberfest and things like that. As somebody who's a 10th generation German, there's something beautiful about having that sort of, that culture. Same thing, in the Muslim cultures, Catholic cultures, Mormon cultures. It's nice, but. For America to be continually criticized for being so horrible as it pertains to, having a legal immigration pathway and not following the legal immigration pathway, then undocumented or not legal. Just look around at other countries. They're a lot more strict. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.